So, Griff, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
That's
So
exciting.
are we.
Yes. Okay, so one of the things we'd like to talk to you about is the caroling on Beacon Hill. Um, how did you first find out that it was a thing?
That's a fun question. When I was a student at Westminster, one of Kathy's sort of standard bantering things that she would talk about, especially during our winter concerts, was this tradition of ringing on Beacon Hill. And when I moved to Boston in 2000, would always travel home on either Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve to visit my family in Maryland. So I was never able to sort of connect or see the ringing tradition.
Mhm.
But I would frequently read little articles, whether it be in the Boston Globe or some of the local newspapers, that the event was still happening. And so I was excited to hear that. Um, in 2016, after one of our Boston Handbell Festival concerts, a woman came up to me. Her name was Pamela Madigan, and she asked if I would be interested in ringing as part of the Beacon Hill Ringers. And it turns out that she has been ringing with the Beacon Hill Ringers since the 1960s.
Wow.
Her mother had sort of previously organized it and had actually knew Margaret Shercliffe, knew Elizabeth Bradford. Um, and so she was just continuing this legacy that had been in existence for nearly 100 years.
Wow.
And
That's
so
wonderful.
I've been able to ring with them on Christmas Eve, much to my mother's chagrin, since I'm not home on Christmas Eve now. Um, but I've been able to ring with them since 2016.
Wow, that's so wonderful. So, um, I was my next question on here is how did you come to be a part of its continuation? But you just told me that. But my personal question is, are you in any way in charge of it or organizing it, or are you just a ringer? Not just.
So right now I am just a ringer. Pamela is still organizing it.
Hmm.
I feel like part of the reason that she asked if I could join was sort of as a legacy issue, making sure that when she's no longer willing or able to continue this tradition, that she's bringing in new people that will make sure that the tradition continues.
Excellent.
And certainly myself and the Back Bay Ringers will make sure that the tradition is kept alive and continues. Um, Funny story about that. The first year
Please.
that she invited me, um, I asked if she could send me the music. And so she sent me a wonderful book of carols that was literally all of the lyrics to all of the carols and a starting note. And if there were any flats or sharps involved, that was the music. There
Not
was
even circles and
no
underlines or anything. Oh my gosh.
no notation or anything. It was just the words to the carols and the starting note, and the fact that I was going to be playing C and D. That was it.
It was all by.
I It is all by ear.
Oh
Okay.
I
gosh.
frantically tried to practice and realized that was not possible. Um, and was incredibly nervous going there the first day. We met literally on Christmas Eve at Pamela's house and stood in a line and just started singing and ringing. And it was amazing how quickly most of the melodies come and how much it just flows. There were
Hmm.
still a few where there's some interesting leaps that I wasn't quite expecting and needed to rehearse a little bit more. Um, but it was really fascinating because we're only ringing the melody
I was
line.
going to ask, that was my next question. Only the melody, okay.
And yeah, it was terrifying, but surprising how easily it came as you were with the group.
I was thinking
Um,
chords and everything too, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
yes, no, thankfully there's no accompaniment. I don't have to be doing music theory in my head
I
right
was
away, which
saying.
everyone is grateful for.
Uh,
Sorry, Mike.
Wouldn't be sound cool if we went to
um,
sixth here. Sorry.
an
um,
August
but it's
6 chord Christmas tune. What? No.
but it's really it is such a fun tradition that's being kept alive.
Mhm.
Most of the musicians that are doing it also have been ringing with them, primarily only ringing with the Beacon Hill Ringers. Pamela does ring in a handbell ensemble in Rhode Island,
Mhm.
but most of the other musicians, their only handbell ringing experience is on Christmas Eve with the Beacon Hill Ringers.
Wow.
And they've been doing their two bells for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years.
Wow.
They
Okay.
were
Yeah.
when the wise men showed up, some of them.
Yeah.
So
And then I'm there and I'm like, oh.
is there like a specific place where they ring? Do they go around the neighborhood? What do they do?
So when Margaret started the tradition in 1924 with her family, um, they had about six carols.
Can we just pause for a second, just acknowledge that you just blew past the date that as of last year was 100 years ago. So
Yes.
let's just have reverence for the moment that we're in. That this has been happening
Yeah.
literally more than a century. That's older than some handbell people have been around. Believe it or not.
It's
Just saying.
Wait, a century?
it's
What?
really it really is a wonderful Boston tradition. And in many ways, this tradition is why we have handbells here in the United States.
Yes.
Um, so Margaret started the tradition with her family, and that Christmas Eve, they went out, they had about six carols. They started with a piece called the St. Paul Steeple, which is actually an English folk song. And they would play their six carols and then move around Beacon Hill, which is a beautiful neighborhood here in Boston. And crowds would gather and would sing along. And it was really supposed to be just fun, right? Like it was just ringing in the holiday spirit. Um, and the tradition grew. The second set of handbells was actually purchased by a company in Quincy, Massachusetts. The owner of the quarry saw the ringing and heard about the ringing and thought that his workers would enjoy that. So he bought a set of bells. And then Old South Church bought a set of handbells. And eventually people started contacting Margaret to find out how they could get handbells and what are handbells and how could they get them started.
And then eventually the guild, you know.
And then eventually the guild.
Cut to the chase. We're here because of Margaret. I have a
Yeah.
funny Margaret story to tell you. I can tell you later. I'm not going to tell you right now. Um, okay, so I was. Is there anything else we need to know about that? I mean, is it open? Can anybody become a ringer, or is it only by invitation, or how does that work?
So it really is kind of only by invitation at this point. It
Mhm.
is such a small group. There are only six of us that are ringing.
Okay.
Um, Pamela's daughter is one of them. And so I guess it's five of us that ring. And literally, the pieces that have the B flat, that B flat is hung around your neck on a cord. And when you need the B flat, you pick that up off of the string and you continue.
Yeah.
So it is just right now, just by invitation. Um, and it was also one of the reasons that I was brought on was because they needed another person. And,
Mhm.
she really liked having someone that was sort of stable, that was going to be able to commit to doing it.
Right. Oh, that's very cool. Very cool.
So let me pivot from the history of what has been and your involvement with that to the looking forward stuff. You know, the Guild, Handbell Musicians of America, our, I guess you'd say, flagship performance events are Distinctly Bronze East and West. We just had Distinctly Bronze West out in Tacoma with Brenda Austin conducting. And I'm excited next spring to be conducting Distinctly Bronze East. And I was excited to see the announcement that you are conducting next year's Distinctly Bronze West. Congrats on that. So
Thank you.
I'm just curious to ask a few thoughts on, like, since it's fresh for me, what was your reaction when that invitation came? And how are you feeling about that?
I was terrified deeply, deeply honored, um, excited beyond belief. I'm really looking forward to working with the caliber of musicians that come to these Distinctly Bronze events.
Hmm.
Um, my focus is always on building community and building musicianship and really focusing on how our art is truly a musical art and the people behind that table. My least favorite word is ringers. They are musicians,
Yes.
um, first and foremost, and empowering the people behind the table to think of themselves as musicians and making musical choices and being responsible for the musicianship of the ensemble. So I'm incredibly excited.
We're Distinctly Bronze has been around a little while. Um, you've seen, the sort of evolution of that event, starting just with East and then adding West. There was a European tour after what, year 10, year 8, somewhere in there.
Like that.
Um, Forgive me for not knowing all the dates off the top of my head. But where do you see that event going in the future and its place in the ever expanding, which I think is awesome, litany of advanced ringing, masked or quasi masked advanced events?
So I think one of the nice things about these types of events is the opportunity that it affords for people who, for musicians who may not have an advanced ensemble in their home community that's easily accessible.
Mhm.
So I love the fact that the Guild is offering these events so that everyone has the opportunity to ring with musicians of a similar caliber. And for some musicians, I'm hoping that for some, it is sort of a regular thing for them to ring at that caliber. But I'm also hoping that for many, it's an experience that will help them move forward as a handbell musician. Uh, and I hope that the community is incredibly supportive and welcoming of all of that.
Yeah.
And that to me is what I would hope for these types of events. I sort of always live in my teacher brain, so that's sort of always in the back of my mind.
Yeah, and I think that it's a fair statement that no matter how advanced the ensemble is, or the players are, or say the musicians that you're conducting, there's still always something for everybody to learn on both sides of the podium.
Absolutely.
So teaching, even if it's not in a formal, pedagogical classroom type of situation or associated with a school or university, there's still teaching to be done as we lead events and things. And you certainly have that in spades. So I'm excited to see where things go with that as well.
Me too. And speaking a little bit more to that teaching thing, I mean, I like to think of myself as a fairly advanced stringer, but when I go to DB, whether it's East or West, there's not been a single time that I have not learned several things.
Agreed.
And sometimes what you learn is what not to do. But there's everything I've learned. It's basically my because I teach a lot at the other events. I don't necessarily get to take a bunch of classes and things. And where do I go to learn more about ringing? And where you get the opportunity to ring with 7 octaves of bells, that it's 8 tables full of that. So for me, DB is a very special place, and I'm excited for East to play with Michael, and I'm excited next year for West as well. And so that's congratulations on that, because that's amazing. It's great. So
Michelle, how many DBs have you participated in?
well, the first one was the first West, which was David Davidson's last one. So that was 2009, and then I went to East after that, and then for several years I went to both. And then there were a few years in the mid tens when I wasn't able to go to things. And so I've recently started going back, and I think for the past 3 years or more, I've been to both as well. And so, except for the one where Emily was on the East podium, and I couldn't. I originally registered and then found out that I couldn't go because I was already booked to conduct a festival that day. So I had to go to bed.
We got a 2 places at one time thing worked out
Oh yeah.
for musicians.
Let me just get
So
back to this rehearsal, and I'll just go over there, and then I'll be back in three
I mean,
days.
if we could, it'd be great. But on the other hand, as soon as I'm able to be in 2 places at once, I want to be in three.
Yes.
How that works. So it's chaos and madness everywhere.
Okay, so Griff, let's talk a little bit about BBR. So tell me about why you formed the group, and what are you guys doing nowadays?
Back Bay Ringers, for those watching that don't know what the alphabet soup is.
Yeah, so Back Bay Ringers was formed in 2004. Um, I got an email from a friend of mine who was a musician at Old South Church. I was conducting a church choir in Boston at the time, and he said, "Hey, I was wondering if you would be interested in starting a handbell ensemble here in Boston for the LGBTQ community." And literally, like a few days before, I had said to my partner that I was really interested in starting a community choir. So BBR was founded as the nation's first open and affirming handbell ensemble for members and friends of the LGBTQIA plus community. And we based our identity around an amazing choir here in Boston called Coro Allegro, which also has that similar open and affirming nature, where it's not specifically an LGBTQ ensemble, but it is intentionally a welcoming and open and affirming space.
Mhm.
And that to me is really important. Um, my co-founder had been at a festival, and one of the musicians at the festival had noticed that Peter was wearing a little pride sticker on his name tag. And this musician said to Peter, he says, "Are you here with your church choir?" He said, "Oh yeah, of course." And he says, "Well," says, "I'm here with my church choir as well, but if they knew that I was gay, I would be asked to leave the church. I wouldn't be able to ring." And making music is, when we ask musicians to make music, we ask them to bring their whole selves. We ask them to, you can't ask someone to really make music and not be fully present. And
Your part.
so that just
Yes.
broke my heart. Um, and so that's really been a key part of who we are. Um, and one of the sweet things, I had a ringer who was um, a little bit older. And she said to me afterwards, when she was finally stepping down, not finally, I'm sad, I was very sad that she was stepping down, but when she was stepping down, she said, "You know, BBR is very intentional about being open and affirming for the LGBTQ plus community." She says, "But I want you to know how open and affirming it was for me as the oldest member of this group, that I always felt welcome, that I always felt valued, that I always felt an equal part." And that really meant a lot. Um, because, like I said, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel welcome in a group, you're not going to be able to bring your full self to that music making.
It's true.
We
So last year we celebrated our 20th anniversary, which was incredibly
Congratulations.
exciting.
That's great.
Um, so it's just been, it really has been a wonderful journey. We are actually embarking on a capital campaign to finally find our own space. We're calling it a foundation campaign, because here in Boston, we're not going to be able to buy a space,
Right.
but we are hoping to be able to rent our own space where we'll be able to bring back our training choir, be able to offer workshops. We'll be able to bring back our advanced small ensemble, all of these things which are just no longer possible in the current space that we're in.
Yes.
So,
were things, did some of that, so I'll be honest, I didn't know that you had a lot of those other sort of offshoots in educational and feeder groups and things like that. Um, you guys presumably have always been in sort of a shared space or a borrowed space situation. What's different now that obviously everybody wants their own space? That would be awesome. And I wish you guys a ton of luck with that. And I'm glad that,
thank you.
so that now we all know and can support you guys. But what's changed? Was it pandemic related stuff, or was it just, did your shared space get more shared, too shared? Did you have to move?
Yes. So we have a fantastic relationship with Old South Church. We are so grateful. They provide wonderful storage for us, but the building is just incredibly busy, and we can't afford to rent 2 or 3 nights there. And they actually don't have the space available for us to rent a second evening. So that's really what stopped us. We had a training choir called the Back Bay Carillon that ran for probably 5 years. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for, it was a non-audition group. Anyone could come. There was a preference if you had some music reading experience, but y'all come was kind of the atmosphere for that group. And it was great. And then we also had what we affectionately called BBQ, which was the Back Bay Quartet. And they were a phenomenal group of sort of self-directed musicians that just worked incredibly hard. And I was always incredibly impressed and proud of what they would put together. So we would love to be able to bring those ensembles back.
So is there any possibility that you guys may have a name change in the future? I've just learned that you don't care for the term ringer, yet it's part of the group's name.
I noticed that
So
too.
when we started, this is kind of a full circle moment here.
Awesome.
We started our conversation with talking about the Beacon Hill Ringers. And the Beacon Hill is the neighborhood that is right next door to Back Bay. So when I was founding the ensemble, I thought of many different names for the group, but I really wanted to honor the legacy of the Beacon Hill Ringers, and that's why I chose the name Back Bay Ringers.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
So the short answer is no, probably not a change.
Not a change.
Just subtitle, Back Bay Ringers. We're actually real musicians. We had somebody earlier today that we talked with who said, we do a bunch of interviews and stuff with, like the punk rock scene and on and on and on, but we don't really get a chance to talk to real musicians very often. And I'm like,
oh, that was nice.
Oh, they're talking about us.
Yes.
Cool. Tell people, skill, legitimacy, yay.
Yay.
We fight that identity all the time. That it's, or I just had a conversation with somebody saying, I hate when they talk about the supplemental instrumentation as the musicians. It's like, okay, and then ringers, blah, 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 and then Saturday we'll do this at 2:00 with the musicians.
It's like musicians and
the
singers.
other musicians, the additional,
right. The other musician.
Yeah, I mean, and we all get a little too sensitive about stuff, but I think it's so amazing what you all have created, and like you said, it kind of just is a full circle type of situation. And we have remarked on, I think, each call that we've done today about the fact that everybody's focus at the end of the day is about, of course, great musicianship, but more so the heart connection and about community building. Yes. And your words are so strong, and I think so inspiring for everybody to carry that you can't fully bask in and share the gift of music if you can't bring your whole self to that experience. So I really appreciate that, Griff. I'm gonna have to quote that in the future.
When you were talking about the real musicians, years ago we did a collaboration with a local group, the Handel and Haydn Society here in Boston, and they had done a composition commission piece, and they knew that we were going to be there, so they had the composer put in a handbell part. Well, bless his heart, he gave us these beautiful whole notes to ring in the background, and then we played Leroy Anderson's Sleigh Ride as one of our solo pieces. And the composer came up to me afterwards and he goes, I just need to apologize. I had no idea what handbells could actually do. And I think that that's really one of our biggest challenges.
That's the recurring theme.
Yeah. People just don't know.
They don't. It's exposure. I mean, most people have seen, I always say, virtuosic violin playing, for example. But if all they knew of violin was a first grade violin class recital, they would not be terribly impressed with that instrument. No offense to first graders, no offense to beginning level handbell musicians. But when, people think that that's, level 2 stuff played really well, which is great, no offense to that, is the epitome of the art form. Well, they just need to be exposed to what else we can do. It's like, but you like that, just wait, there's more. And it's getting that word out, which is part of what this event is doing. So thank you for being a part of it, Griff.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And do you have any exciting things going into the holiday season? Final words of wisdom for everybody who's trying to keep their sanity during all the holiday music madness?
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Handbells at Christmas? It's never a busy time of the year.
Right?
Silly.
Never. Like the least stressful time ever. Especially if you have a church job on top of that. No big deal. No, I just think of all of the joy that it brings. And my number one goal, and I always say this at the end of our concerts, is that I hope that when people come to a Back Bay Ringers concert during the holidays, that it is just a time for them to enjoy the moment, to take a break from the holiday hustle and bustle, not worry about the packages that need to be wrapped and presents that still need to be bought and all the food and all the decorations, and just breathe and relax and be in the moment. And that's really what I hope, that all of our concerts, whether it's Back Bay Ringers or any of the other ensembles as we're performing, that we remember that we're providing that joy and that moment of reflection and calm for our audiences.
Music escape. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Griff.
Thank you, Griff, for joining us.
Thank you.
Have an awesome holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Care. Bye.